to redo.
Price of popularity.
I can't keep it all
How do you
straight. I got to be honest with you.
How do you do it?
Okay.
Sinbad is watching me, right?
I think it just went to Facebook Live.
Meeting is
So let
now
me go over and
live on
make sure.
Facebook. Yes.
And yeah, we're live, Bruce.
Great to see you there, Linda.
And I'm going to share it with you.
Super.
Do you think you could go please to your Facebook and share it?
Okay, I'll see how I do that.
Bruce?
No, I'm trying to do that. Yeah.
Bruce?
Yes.
Bruce?
I'm here. I'm here.
Hello?
You can't hear me? I'm not muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can't hear you.
That's weird. I'm not muted.
Say something to me.
Hello. 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 Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Let me keep talking.
Linda. 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 Linda.
There. Perfect.
Linda. All right.
It's acting like the internet's unstable. So we'll just have to go with this and work with it.
No worries.
Thank you for being the calming person once again. Facebook people, welcome. Come on in and have a seat together. Today, an amazing person that I actually know in real life, and I interviewed him on my old equipment. Today we get to do it with new technology while we both have amazing backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I met Bruce Lipsky in New York City at Gladys Simon's room inside the comic strip Live, and I adore this man. He has a calming effect on any crowd, and he's quite the person that's helpful in a lot of Zoom shows. Whenever there's a glitch, he stays calm and figures it out for all of us others that are, boomers and tweaking and acting weird. He stays calm. This guy has, wait until you hear his intro. Let's get into it. Bruce Lipsky, welcome to the show. I'll read your intro.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I thank you for coming on second time. After a 35-year career in the fitness and wellness field, talk about a survivor, Bruce is well positioned to know that laughter really is the best medicine. Yeah. Bruce's stand-up has been seen at Dangerfields, the Broadway Comedy Club, the Comic Strip Live in New York City, as well as Governor's, the Brokerage, and my father's place on Long Island up in New York. More recently, Bruce has zoomed in during our time of quarantine to appear in many virtual shows, bringing his unique comedy perspective of life and family and personal experiences, and also battling COVID. So welcome to the stage, my friend and soon to be yours, Bruce Lipsky. Hi, Bruce.
Thank you, Linda. After that intro, I think we only have like 2 minutes left for an interview.
That doesn't count against you. That's just
okay.
That's easy peasy.
I'm a man of many words. What can I say? But again, I appreciate the opportunity to come back over here. And it was interesting too because you're out by the pool, and I'm getting people coming behind you with bikinis on. So this is fantastic. This is an extra benefit. All right.
This is going to be fabulous for you.
Dive in the pool here. I like it.
Meanwhile, I have to sit here and look at my own face in this thing, and I'm like, who invented this? I don't want to look at me. I want to look at other people.
Well, I can get slapped for that. What did I say? Look with your eyes, not your hands.
There you go. Yeah. So talk to me about New York City and getting through, watching others go through COVID, and let's just get the big elephant out of the room, you going through and surviving and thriving with COVID.
Sure. Thank you. As you're well aware from the last interview, around the middle of March, I started feeling kind of ucky, and I never had, I can't say the last time I had a fever, 30, 40 years ago. I woke up with a fever and I called my doctor's office. I said, come in, get the tests and so on and so forth. We'll get the results back in 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days turned into 10 days. In the meantime, I started getting sicker and sicker. So I called a friend of mine who's a doctor, and he said, I think you got the disease. Why don't you come to my office? The only difference is my office is closed right now, but I'll open it specially for you. So he dropped off a hazmat suit on my front porch. And I live in a very small town, almost like Mayberry RFD. They call my town the town that time forgot. One of those really small mom and pop towns. So here I am walking with a hazmat suit on in the middle of town, and people are giving me all these crazy looks. Then I eventually went to the doctor's office. He did all these tests on me, and thankfully my lungs were clear and other things were good. But I started getting sicker. And he said, I'll start treating you for the COVID. And I just wasn't responding. And eventually the test came back positive. And he said, now we have to make a decision. You know, we treated you with the basic stuff and a lot of 200,000 units of vitamin D. And he said, now it may be time to go on to the anti-malarial drug. And I was really scared about that because I heard some negative things about that drug, but it was kind of a risk-reward ratio over here. What's the right thing to do? So I got the prescription filled. It was dropped off at my house on a Saturday. And I waited till the next day to take it because I was too scared. And I woke up the next night. So what's my best chance of getting better? So I took the drug. I don't know if it helped me or not, but fast forward 6 months now, I'm still have the symptoms of COVID, nothing the way I had at the beginning. I'll have some days where I feel really good, and the next days I get slammed with trachea constriction, bad headaches, sometimes nausea. But, you know, I keep pushing forward because I'm in constant contact with my doctor, and he essentially says, we're guessing right now. As long as your symptoms are manageable, and that's what they are, thankfully, they're not getting worse. Just live life, you know, and that's what I'm doing. You know, I'm keeping busy, staying active. Also, you know, there's a mental and physical aspect to this whole disease. Well, the physical aspect, obviously, dizzy, lightheaded, nauseous, dry heaves, bad headache, very weak, bad cough, just totally out of it. No appetite, lose weight, just want to be left alone and crawl into a ball. But I pushed through that, got on my treadmill, started walking more and more and more. You know, so now I'm doing 40 minutes on my treadmill every day. Certainly not at the speed I'm used to doing, but I'm starting to bring more exercise into my life. And I think that's one of the reasons that I think I've gone over the hump. Now, fast forward to the other side, what's the mental aspect of this? You know, am I dying? Is there a cure? Will this ever go away? You know, what's going on around me? You know, what's in the news? Friends of friends passing away, friends' parents passing away, hearing terrible stories anywhere you go, whether it's New York, whether it's California, whether it's Europe, everything's inundating all these facts and semi-facts and lies, whatever's out there. But all I can say is I got the T-shirt. I'm experienced in this. I have experienced it. So I can talk firsthand. You know, as I said before, the mental aspect is very challenging, not only on my end, but think about my family. You know, I got a wife, I got a son, I have other responsibilities. I have in-laws and outlaws you got to deal with, you know, and plus your friends and your other network. So you're trying to keep life as much as possible normal in this crazy pandemic world. And what is normal? Normal changes every day, you know. So thankfully, you know, the Zoom and help at least my comedy stay fresh and out there. I've met a lot of people, great. Some of these international Zoom shows are fantastic. I do a show once or twice a week that's originating from Japan. I've met comedians from Russia, China, Japan, Malaysia, India, you know, the UK, Canada, and the US. And, you know, those people, the foreign people, you know, everything is English. You know, they speak very good English. And even the people in the United States speak pretty good English too. Yeah. So again, that's been great, and I've been able to branch out that way. And also the opportunity to do shows like this, or I've got interviews with various other people. I met a comedian who also was an emergency room physician, and she runs a show every week. I've been on her show as well, talking about COVID and comedy and so on and so forth. So it's been a very interesting ride, and thankfully the ride is continuing, which is a great thing. It's like any time you don't feel well, you have your ups and downs, and that's perfectly normal. And sometimes you want to be left alone. Sometimes you want to feel sorry for yourself. But I have the attitude, usually I like to push forward all the time, and try and keep a good attitude and gratitude and wherever other words rhyme with that, latitude and, so
Gratitude.
exactly,
My
exactly.
God.
So,
Wow.
so that's where I stand. And, if you look at New York City, I live in Long Island, which is very close to New York City. You can see what's happening. Everybody gets excited. Schools are opening. Some of the businesses are opening. And next day, up, 3 schools closed down. They just shut down a place over, and they just shut down the comedy club. They shut down something else because they were violating the social distancing rules. So people are antsy at this point. People want to be out in the real world. And I think that's where comedy's really helped a lot too. I think if we can do some of these Zoom shows more involved, and just to have some outlet. If these people want an outlet. I'm not a television watcher necessarily, unless it's an old movie or a really old TV show. Uh, but some people like to binge watch, and I can't do that. I can't just do that. I'd rather find some other hobby. But that's me. If that works for you, that's fine. But it's gotten to the point where people are getting stale after, because now it's been a good 6 months, 7 months, where and now the colder weather's starting to happen. At least in New York, what we've had some of the restaurants opening up like outside bistros.
Yes.
Not the most comfortable place to be because they put up these concrete stanchions, picnic tables, and people are walking by and the cars are there. But it's life, at least.
Exactly.
As the weather gets colder, it's a rainy day, or I feel bad for the business owners. I look at my town. Some of the stores that I've known for 30 years or close to that are closing down or have closed down. And
Yes.
and these are just working schmoes like me and anybody else, and all they want to do is pay their rent and have something extra at the end of the month.
That's right.
And it's tough. Restaurants operating at 40% capacity, 30% capacity, movie theaters. I mean, you can go on and on and on. I don't know. Broadway is shut down. Anything that has to do with entertainment is shut down.
Yes.
They're trying to sneak in some outdoor live shows, but those have been closed down too. Because again, it's been very difficult to coordinate this. Some of the ones that I saw are semi-successful was people do it like almost like a drive-in theater type of thing where you're in your car and have that out in the loudspeakers and stuff. It's something at least, but it's still, again, the touch, the one-on-one feel, personal attention, that's just not there anymore.
It isn't.
But everybody's
It's
got a
not
mask.
there.
Before the pandemic, everybody had their own mask without having a mask on. That's their personality. Now you have a double layer with another mask on. So if you don't
Yes.
like me, you can be sticking your tongue out at me and I don't even know it anymore. Or you
I've
could
told more people to go to hell and they don't even know.
Exactly. Well, you'd be blowing kisses to me.
Oh my gosh. You know me too well.
Exactly, yeah. And so, again, am I perfect? No. Am I managing it the best I can? I think so. But I'm still stressed like everybody else. And I said the biggest stress I have is what if scenarios I mentioned before. Can I get the disease again? I have antibodies. I have very high antibody levels. But what does that mean? You talk to Dr. A, he'll say, oh, antibodies are fantastic because you fought the disease, they're in your body. If you get the disease again, there's less of a chance of being severe, okay? Dr. B says, in theory, yes, antibodies are good, but if you look at the other side, the reason you have antibodies is because you had the disease and you're fighting it. What would you rather have, no antibodies or antibodies and fighting the disease? And I think I mentioned on the last show, the whole thing about fighting this disease, they call it shedding. And shedding essentially means the dead cells, the body's trying to shed or rid itself of the dead cells. So that is, I try to produce some comedy over those things too. I was trying to do some comedy related to COVID, but it's somewhat tasteful. It's the type of thing where there's a lot of people suffering, a lot of people who have passed away, a lot of people who are healthy are now really dependent on, on either dialysis or lung machines or whatever it may be, medicine. That's where this come from, and so you try and keep it light. I've had experience with my wife, with COVID. Thankfully I have a good support network between her and my son. But, the stresses from her too. Some of the things that she's experienced, I try to turn it around into comedy. I had mentioned, I think the last time I was here, when I first got, I was feeling sorry for myself. I was up in my outside of my bedroom. I have a little sitting room, a rocking chair with a blanket over me, and I'm rocking like this, and I'm just feeling like crap. And my wife was walking the dog, and she's coming into the driveway, and she sees me rocking like this, and looked up, and she texts me and says, you look like Norman Bates' mother from Psycho. I said, great, she's been dead. She's been petrified and dead for 20 years. And that's what you're reminding me of. Thanks for the encouragement over here, But it was, but these are the things you have to make fun of, and trying to keep, in quarantine. How do you keep the passion? There is no passion necessarily, this is one type of thing. So what she did, she took one of her Victoria's Secret's lace bras, black bra, and cut it in half and made masks out of it.
Smart.
But thankfully, she's a double D. So my nose. Yeah. What I did for her though was just as exciting. I basically retrofitted one of my athletic supporters. You got to keep the love in the family. What can I tell you?
She's a jock supporter now.
Exactly. He's always on the ball, and that's a good thing.
Touche.
Exactly. As we digress, right? Yes.
Let's go into the puns.
Exactly. But no, the amazing thing is, you think about it, it's been 6 months of virtual lockdown for a lot of people.
Yes.
How they've lived their lives. And I'm sure you see it in Vegas. People want out. Behind you are these bars, basically, of a fence. Just let me out. And then you start forgetting. Did I bring my mask? Whoops, I didn't bring my mask with me.
Yes.
And other times, the mask is basically glued to your face. Now you're afraid to go anywhere. Somebody sneezes up. Well, if you sneeze, do I have COVID? And people become paranoid.
Yes. So what is something that has happened that has really encouraged you to keep going from other people? Like, who's somebody that's reached out to you and given you hope when you've been in a dark place with the COVID, other than family? Because I'm sure they've done everything correctly.
Exactly. I have 3 friends of mine that we know each other for probably 50 years. Prior to COVID, we would get together every month and have dinner. We're not geographically necessarily close to each other. One lives, 60 miles away, one lives 30 miles away, one lives 15 miles away. So we try to get together at least once a month. Because we couldn't do that, they were texting me every day and calling me or whatever. I felt funny because, when you ask somebody how you're feeling, and for the first 3 months, all you say is, I feel like crap, I feel the same. They start thinking, is it in his head?
Yep.
And I've been told that, are you sure it's not anxiety? Are you sure you're not dreaming this stuff up? But there's been a lot of studies out there and articles talking about called the long haulers. There's 3 or 4 types of how this disease manifests. Somebody gets it, they don't even know they have it. The next person gets it, and they have it for 2 or 3 days, head cold, whatever, and then they're fine. The third person gets it, 2 days they're in a hospital on a ventilator. And the fourth person who gets it is like me, what they call the long haulers, where you just got this continuous, stream of whatever it is, whatever the symptoms are. They go away for a few days, and boom, you get them back. You go away, boom, get them back. And there's no rhyme or reason trying to figure this out. So when my friends would be calling me, or other friends would text me on Facebook, a lot of comedy friends, they would say, sure, it's not in your mind after a while. Maybe you need an anxiety pill or something like that. Even my wife started questioning it. Then when she started reading the stuff and hearing from other people on television, then she said, he ain't bullcrapping me. This is real,
Exactly.
And going forward, as far as support, when people found out, at least in the comedy world, that I got COVID, some of my good comedy friends sent it out to the network of comedians, their network, and I was getting people basically contacting me that I didn't even know, some famous comedians too, coming back to me and saying, oh, Bruce, I hope you feel better, so on and so forth. Maybe one day we'll share the stage together, trying try to cheer you up type of thing. And that was nice. That was nice.
That's
You know,
wonderful.
I would
Wonderful.
do the
And
same.
I know people, if you have a hangnail and it doesn't heal in the correct amount of time, people start wondering if you need to see a shrink. It's like
Exactly.
huh?
Right, exactly. You've already gone to the beauty parlor to get your nails clipped and everything, nail salon. Now after that, and it's not healing. What do?
Yeah,
Take a
I know
hammer.
what that's, yeah. I know what it's like, people will be there to support you, but if it lingers, people
Right, right,
start dropping off like flies.
right. Then you say, okay, I feel better for 3 or 4 days. And then 3 or 4 days later, I don't feel good. Oh, maybe it's in your head. You know. Yeah. So
Yes.
then, so somebody walks in your shoes, you shouldn't basically comment on that and judge. But
Thank you.
yeah,
Exactly.
so
I
we've
went
all
through
been
I went
okay.
through that when I got hit by a drunk driver in 96,
Right.
and my brain didn't heal. It took 16 years. I lost a lot of friends.
Sure, and that's the time you really need them. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know my story. I was in a serious car accident back in '09. I had a
Yes.
badly fractured spine. I had other things really, to the point where when one of the first doctors to see me, I'm in the room with her and she's crying. There's tears coming down her eyes, doctor. And I said, why are you crying? She says, I'm looking at the MRIs and all this stuff. I don't know how you're alive, she said. I'm looking at this and how even you're walking. It's amazing, she said. I started crying then, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is a doctor who was a friend of my brother's. And also, she kind of took over the case. So she wasn't going to bullcrap. She was straight ahead, So, because my spinal injury was similar to, I don't know if you know who Teddy Pendergrass was, the famous singer,
Yes.
Philadelphia soul singer. He was in a very serious car accident, had spinal injury. I had a similar spine injury. He was a quadriplegic after that. I don't want to be talking down on this show here today, but
No,
it's
but
reality. It's reality. You have challenges in life. And a few weeks ago, Debbie Baza interviewed me and Nevin Cummings on 9/11 with the 9/11 show, not a comedy show. I've never do comedy on 9/11, but I was down there at the 9/11 as well, and my experience. So
what was your experience with 9/11?
well, I was 2 blocks away when the planes hit and everything, when the building fell and so on and so forth, you know, and how you manage that whole scenario, covered in all that ash and soot and whatever combined of whatever else was on fire over there, the pandemonium and everything else. So yeah, and so we had a very nice show. Not that I want to tout somebody else's show. I was just making the fact that we all go through challenges in life. Believe me, my
Yes.
9/11 challenges were a lot less than other people. I'll be the
Yes.
first to say that. But at the time it's happening, you're not prepared for this. Who wakes
No.
up in the morning to expect something like this, or the car accident, or COVID, whatever it may be, you know? So that's why not all the time, I try and stay positive and smiling and encourage and support people because it sucks when you're down, especially when you think you're alone. Because that's one thing I found with COVID. As much as I had family and friends, the other day, I'm alone in bed there. My mind starts to work. I couldn't sleep. I was coughing too much. So I'm sitting in that rocking chair. And what mind starts to go and go and go, start thinking weird things, and that's not healthy either, you know.
Yes.
And other
And
people look to me for support as well.
absolutely, you're a pillar. Everybody looks to you for strength. That must be kind of hard when you're not feeling good to be a pillar, and you get people coming to your messages wanting to know how you're doing, and you just want to be left alone.
Yeah, but I was interested. I'm one of those people. I guess it's my personality. I'm almost embarrassed to the point where people reach out. I'm a giver as opposed to a receiver.
Yes.
And I sometimes I don't know how to accept that, or I get embarrassed. I appreciate it and love it, but it's like then they say, "Oh, Bruce, you got what a great set! What a fabulous set! You did a great set," and I'll say, "Oh, thanks." I want it. I want to say, "Oh, I'm sometimes more the Debbie Downer than the other way around." But if Linda came to me and I said, "Linda, fantastic set," You said, oh, it wasn't great. What do you mean it wasn't great? Listen to the audience. So it's like, don't do as I do as I say.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So I have a hard time sometimes accepting the compliments, but I like to give the compliments when they're due. You know.
That's awesome. I know that you have always been ever since I met you at Comic Strip Live, you've been so supportive and patient. And then, you have this whole background of having been healthy and in the health field, and the endorphins and the positivity you've got. Do you think that your health career and training has helped you through COVID and through 9/11 and through the car accident immensely? Or
Absolutely, absolutely. My background is, what I did for a living. I worked for a major corporation, banking corporation, one of the top three in the world. I was part of the health services department there. And what we had on-site fitness centers. I was one of the pioneers of on-site fitness centers, in that part of the industry. And so I designed them, I built them, I staffed them, I ran them, and we had them all over the country. It was a fabulous job. I loved it. I'm a high-level officer there. My background in education is in physical education, undergraduate and master's, plus various certifications. But as far as education and experience, I have that. I also taught as an adjunct at colleges in their graduate program in the exercise science department. So again, I enjoy the teaching aspect as well. But when mergers and acquisitions and things like that, new management takes over. They said, "Oh, maybe we can lop off $8 million of the budget." They decided to shut my programs. So I remember it was my 25th anniversary with the company, and we were having a senior management meeting. I was brought to New Jersey, and I was having all my managers come in from all over the United States because it was budget season. And I get there and I said, something doesn't feel right. Across from me was the head of HR, one of the not the top guy, but like number 2 or 3 person in HR. My boss was on the phone because at the time he was in Chicago. And there was another person sitting on the side, sort of almost like a witness. I thought I was going to get my 25th anniversary clock. Instead, I got my clock cleaned.
my gosh.
They said, Bruce, we don't know how to tell you this. And literally, this is interesting too, because senior manager in HR, she was telling this and tears were coming down her eyes
Wow.
because these programs were so well revered in the organization. But the guy who took over was making a statement because we're going to close facilities down. So I thought maybe she's going to close a few facilities down. She said, we're closing them all down. This was in November. And she said, okay, next steps, I said, and I said, all my managers are flying in. And I said, when do you plan to close these facilities down? By December 31st, year end. So and she said, I want you to call all your managers up, tell them not to come to New York. I had California, Arizona, Texas, Delaware, Florida, and plus my local people in New York all coming to this meeting. And the thing is, call them up and tell them they can't come in. Don't tell them why. There'll be a bank meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'll explain everything. Imagine if I told you, Linda, you have this trip planned, and we're talking about budgets, and all of a sudden, 2 minutes before you're about to get on the flight, Linda, don't get on the flight. Why, Bruce? I can't tell you. So it makes me look like
Jeez.
a schmo,
Absolutely.
in front of your people. So long story short, they had this meeting and said, okay, budget cutbacks, everybody gone by December 31st. I stayed on longer because I had to shut down the programs. But it was unfortunate because, it's a career and I loved it. But again, physically, I was always active, exercise every day. Well, yes, if you ask me, did that help me with my accident? I'm sure it did. Maybe my core was stronger, but at the end of the day, too, it could be luck.
Yeah.
Could be a little luck too. Or it depends how it was obviously bad luck, but within that bad luck, it was good luck. Because I remember when I told you that this doctor was crying when she read my x-rays and MRIs, and she said the thing that saved me was that my spinal cord stayed intact, rotate. So maybe my core did help out. So it was because I was the third car of a small accident, then I got rear-ended full speed. So I became
Oh,
almost like the ham in the middle of the sandwich. And I felt it happen. But it was a medical miracle. No hospital stay or no operations. The only hospital
wow.
time I had was when they first brought me in. And I was determined the next day to start my own rehab. although I went to physical therapy for 3 years, you know, after that, so yeah, so it was a game changer. Let's put it that way. I walk with a cane, you know that, but
Yes.
see me and look at me and say, oh, here's a hot looking guy over here. I love a man with a cane.
He raises a lot of cane.
Exactly, cane do.
So, with regard to your comedy, I met you approximately 3 years ago at Comic Strip Live, Gladys Simon's room, Helene Witt, Robin, Siegel Lake, and we're all good buddies in there and everything. And your comedy has gelled most recently. What do you give credit to that? Who do you give, what has time, persistence, a
Yeah,
certain person?
it was interesting you say that because about 3 years ago when we did meet, I had taken a class about 3 years ago at stand-up university, Rich Walker, Peter Bales, and, so on and so forth. And it was a great class. And I always wanted to do comedy and stand-up. And it was interesting because after my accident, I got into stand-up because I can stand up. That was one of my monikers. So, but I said, let me try this out. And, one of the neatest things about this was the first night jitters and everything else like that. I froze on stage for like 3 seconds, which seems like an eternity. Couldn't
Yes.
remember the word peanut butter for some reason. But the show went pretty well. And, after that, the biggest accolade to all this is my brother came up to me. My oldest brother passed away since.
Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you. He said, I'm so proud of you. He said, he said, you've done something that I could have never imagined myself doing. He was a funny guy. I grew up in a very funny family, very sarcastic family. I had a base. That's why I had a base for comedy, self self self-effacing type of thing, As I say, I grew up in a very rare family. They were all martial artists. My parents had black belts in jujitsu. Father had a black belt in nagging. The father had a black belt in sarcasm and frustration. But it was the type of thing where, yeah, it was always there. And my father had such a wit behind him, it was fabulous. But again, when I took that class, there was a year between that and when I really started doing any comedy. There were some family issues that were happening. So I really didn't get involved in comedy until I kind of started doing few open mics. I got some bringer shows and bringer brutes. One of my bucket list things in all of comedy, I used to go to Dangerfields when I was growing up, Rodney and whoever else there. I wanted to play on Dangerfield stage. So I got to play on Dangerfield stage. Some of my relatives seeing me and some friends, and that was the best thing in the world. Even if I sucked that night, I didn't care. But the neat thing about that was I used to go on stage. I'd have a sport coat, a white shirt and tie. My wife got me these novelty ties. And so one of the first times I was at Dangerfields, and I'm waiting in the green room over there, and I did my set, and Steve Marshall was a dear friend of yours and mine. Great,
Yes.
one of the nicest man in the world.
Nicest.
I was there, and he came up to me and said, I really like the way you look. I like your style, and I like your comedy. Here's my card. You ever want to talk? Get together? Fine. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, here's a headline guy, really. But he had a sincerity behind him. And so
Yes.
a lot of people would take the card and throw it away. A couple of weeks later, I called him up. And, Steve, how about I take you to lunch? So we met for lunch. And during that lunchtime, we bonded. I mean, that hour lunch turned into like 3 hours plus. In fact, Steve's girlfriend was like calling all the time. And he said, leave me alone, leave me alone. To the point where eventually he said, come down to the diner. You have to meet this guy. So we started with that. Then we wound up in another booth with his girlfriend. And suddenly we were like bonding, like we knew each other for a long time. He said, anytime you reach out to me. And I spent some other lunches and times with him going over something. I was a mentor and fabulous. So that was my first immersion into it. I felt validated.
Totally.
Meeting you guys as well at Gladys's. What I would do, I live in Long Island. Gladys has a 5:30 mic, as you know.
Yes.
And for me to go to see Gladys by train and so on and so forth, I'd have to go to Penn Station, shuttle up to the east side, blah, 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 blah. That can take 2 hours plus. That wasn't the big deal going in, but going home. If you got out of there at 8 o'clock, if you miss a train, who knows? You can go home 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to do that. So I would drive into the city and park, try and find a parking spot. Sometimes it would take me an hour and 45 minutes. Drive into the city, circle around trying to find a spot. And I'd get there and she would book people for the open mic, and sometimes you wouldn't get on.
That's right.
So, but one of the biggest things, the fact that I was validated to be invited, and I kind of invited myself to Gladys because I'd done a show with somebody at the Broadway Comedy Club, and I started talking and said, I really want to get past this ringer stuff. I want to start doing open mics and stuff. And he says, how about take this number, Gladys Simon, give her a call. So I gave her a call, explained who I was. She said, come down, check out the mics and everything. Then she said, come back again. And, about 3 out of 4 times, the first times I got there, I didn't get on stage, but I kind of knew the routine. But when I felt validated by her is when she said, Bruce, why don't you join us for dinner afterwards? We're going to the diner.
Exactly.
And we had, in fact, you were with me at one of those nights too.
Yes.
And again, the validation means a lot to me. So my comedy was not great. I knew that. I felt that I was more reciting comedy as opposed to experiencing the comedy. I was memorizing, and the other thing about my mother-in-law, that's stiff and everything, but that's part of the deal. It takes time. And she,
Yes.
and she told me, Bruce, you got to just be more natural and be visceral. That was the word, be visceral. And over the course of time, you do get better and better. You have shitty performances, let's say that. And other nights you get out there and you think you did the same thing and people love you,
Yes.
Then one of the things I stopped doing was comparing myself to other comedians. And I think that's a big thing. Anybody out there who's a comedian, just because Linda is a fantastic comedian, it's a reason why she is, because she's worked her rear end off to get to that point. All right. Well, what doesn't matter your style of comedy, the fact that you've worked so hard to get to that point and your confidence and everything. So yes, do I want to be like Linda? In some ways for her confidence and other things, but my comedy is not Linda's comedy, nor is my comedy Linda's comedy, or Linda's comedy my comedy, or anybody else's. You'll see really polished comedians. Oh, that's such a tight set. I don't know how they do it. They tell a joke and they got 6 tags afterwards. How come when I try that, one of my tags worked, the other 5 go down the toilet? Why is that?
Yes.
Well, then I started taking a couple of private sessions with Rich Walker, who was my comedy mentor from that. I did a few with Steve Marshall as well. And it's interesting too, because they're totally different comedians, So I kind of get the feel of both ends of that and what really works for me. And that's a very hard thing too. Who am I as a comedian? What is my persona? I've been told many times, Bruce, you're a very low level type of guy. You come off as a poor schmuck, always getting banged on the head with something, almost like a Rodney type thing, no respect. But it's okay. But everybody used to tell me, Bruce, where I thought I was loud on stage and emotional, they say, Bruce, you're at a 2. You need to be a 10. They'll really be out there. I mean, get the hands going and get involved in the crowd more. Try and be the person that you're talking about. It's a lot of my comedy. It originally was, okay, I got a call from my 87-year-old dad. He said, Bruce, they just opened a new comedy club in the neighborhood. Okay, Dad, what's it called? He said, stand up MRI. No emotion behind it. All right? As opposed to, Bruce, guess what? They just opened a new comedy club in the neighborhood. That's fantastic, Dad. What's it called? Stand up MRI. I said, So again, try and be the character. It's very difficult for me to do that because when I think I'm doing a character, now if I'm doing my mother, it sounds almost like my father. So again, that's been the most difficult thing for me in comedy is being the person that I'm trying to become, or whether it's my wife, whether it's whoever it may be. I don't have to sound exactly like her, but if I bring her into the picture, I was told, don't do the he said, she said, he said, she said. That almost becomes a narrative. And so I'm really working on that. So I think that's been one of the things that I think helped advance my comedy is listening. listening to people who have the right comedy voice. And you have negative people out there too. Whatever the reason being, they want to put you down, and that's okay, because telling my comedy sucked, okay, that's your opinion of it. The best way to figure out what my comedy sucks is to let the audience figure it out. Of course, with Zoom shows, it's a little more difficult. I mean, I don't want to be taking too much time
No,
into
I
whatever.
no, I haven't even used half of my battery, and
Okay,
I'm only doing about one interview a day so I can focus and really do a
right,
good
right,
job with one person. So keep talking.
okay. So again, fast forward to Zoom comedy now. I think that's helped me out a lot because what I've done, I've gone out of my comfort zone. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm doing international mics. I'm doing mics from California, and then I've met people. And last weekend I did a show out of Colorado that somebody booked me from a show from a mic that I did in California. You know,
Yes.
so and these are the type of things I'm doing something tonight. Somebody else, it's more of a private mic that I got invited to. So
Wonderful.
that's why I can't do Rob's because I have some other commitment. I'm trying to keep in the game and doing different stuff. I just booked an Australian mic uh, sometime in October. 6 in the morning, which is okay. But again, this is getting to meet the different people. They get to see me, and even if they're putting a Zoom show together, you know, maybe say, oh, I like this guy Bruce. This is from New York. It's different. He's got the New York accent, and as opposed to the down under accent. Yeah. Then there are some mics out there that are feedback mics, and I'm sure a lot of listeners know that, where you'll do 5 minutes or whatever the time is, and the other comedians will give feedback, and that's a good thing too. You take that in. Even if you get one pearl out of all this stuff, that can make the difference of a joke working or not. And I've gotten some
Absolutely.
of that, just as I love to do that as well. One of the things I enjoy doing is helping other comedians, even though I haven't been doing comedy that much. Sometimes I feel that I have a better eye and ear for somebody else's comedy than mine.
You
You know,
do. I've
so
looked back at the notes you and I messaged each other. I've sent you comedy and you've taken it and massaged it into something beautiful.
mhm. Well, the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree here.
Thank you.
So again, as I said, we've done some of these classes together, and I think those have been very beneficial because again, it gives an opportunity for people to be in a non-judgmental environment. When you get on some of the open mics that I used to do prior to the pandemic, I never was a big fan of open mics, and I used to go back and forth with our dear friend Helene Witt. So you got to do more open mics, you got to get out there, and I never liked the open mic scenario because I've been to too many bad ones where I'd
Yes.
get there and the host would be drunk, three other comedians would be high, and I'd be the 65-year-old guy out there, and these are 20-year-olds, riffing against themselves. Then I started changing my mindset with that. I said, well, I'm going to be healthfully selfish. I'm going to go there for one purpose, to get on stage and do my 5 minutes or 7 minutes, whatever it is, and the hell with they have to say because they don't listen anyway, you know.
So,
So, but I was doing some of that, and I started doing some in Long Island, and then you'd be going to these bars, and there'd be six comedians and nobody else there, you know, you know, and the sound system would have a high pitch to it. It wouldn't be working right. But that's all part of the deal of growing up in comedy. Believe me, the Seinfelds and the Louis C.K.'s and the Chris Rocks and whoever else may be, they just didn't wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm a headliner, you
no.
know, shovel crap before you can roll in it, basically, you know. So
Out of all the people that I've interviewed, I've run into one person the first time he got on stage, he killed at a contest, and it's been nonstop since then. It's just so rare.
there are some people that, hey, good for them, and sometimes you meet some young kids, as I said, we're not too far from each other's age, so
Yes.
starting comedy for me later in life, I felt there are self barriers. There are not barriers, but there are self barriers. One of the first times that I went to a free comedy seminar run by Andy Engel from Gotham, you know, business, business, business. He wants to sell you classes, but again, this is business. I appreciate that. And he asked any questions, and I was new to this, and I raised my hand and I said, as a 60-plus-year-old comedian just starting out, is anybody looking for that? A 60-year-old Jewish comedian, bald head, you know, and his answer was, if you're funny, you're funny. That's what it comes down to, and I said, how? He said, you're very funny to me if you bring 10 people on a bringer, you know.
Huh. Yeah.
That's how they were gauging how funny you are if you more people you brought, But eventually, if you can get on that stage and he sees you, he liked you, then maybe you get the opportunity to say, hey, I'll give you a 3-minute spot. I remember one of the first spots that I got on a real show. I had done some shows for Bob DeBono at Dangerfields. And I said to him, I'm saying, Bob, I've done a lot of these shows. I brought people, Saturday shows, which actually was a good thing because we went to dinner afterwards. I took my wife out. It was a nice day. My relatives would be there or whatever. But I finally said to Bob, I said, there's got to be open spots you can put me in. Because I'll tell you what, next Wednesday, why don't you come down to 10 o'clock to Dangerfield? Go on there. I'm all set to go to Dangerfields. And it worked out well because I booked an open mic for Gladys that Wednesday as well. So I figured I'd stay in the city. So he calls me up like 7:30 to Bruce, the show's canceled. We didn't have enough people. I said, can you give me something else? He says, come Friday night. Get there around 10 o'clock. Okay, great. So I'm the type of guy, if I have to be there 10 o'clock, I'll get there 9 o'clock.
Me too.
If I want to be sure that nothing screws up, because my first chance to be on stage, a real show without having to bring people, I want to make sure I'm going to get there early. Plus, I want to see the comics there. Meet the host, meet the MC. Just be there, get settled, find a parking spot, whatever. I got lucky. I found a spot right in front of Dangerfields. I had over an hour before 10 o'clock. I got there 10 to 9. So I get there, and the MC is sitting at the bar. He looked miserable. And I introduced myself, and Bob told me to come here at 10. I know I'm early. I want to see the show. What are you doing here so early? I figured I'd be on by 10:30. He said, no, you're on the late show.
Oh, God.
What's at 10:30? So now I'm sitting there, and this guy was just miserable. He didn't. And so I started talking to him, and he said to me, "Why'd you get into comedy?" I said, "Well, various reasons. One, I wanted to have fun, plus perform and do well." He says, "Have fun. That's the problem with you guys. All you guys want to do is have fun. I'm busting my top to get up on the make better comedy and get on stage, and all you guys are coming out there. All you want to do is have fun." Whoa, boy!
Oh my gosh.
So fast forward to the 10:30 show. Okay, Steve Marshall was the headliner. Okay,
wow.
But anyway, there was like, I don't know, 10 comedians. How many comedians there were? And I wound up going last after Steve Marshall. I got on at 12:15 at night.
Oh my God.
And I paid my dues that night. And now by 12:15 at night, Steve Marshall killed. People were on the floor crying, because he's such a dynamic comedian. And now coming to the stage, the MC goes, Brian Lipsky. He even got my first name wrong. So Steve turns around and says, it's Bruce. Oh, yeah, Bruce Lipsky. Hey, folks, good evening, everybody. It's all 8 of you now that's left here. And half drunk, wanting to pay their checks, Another thing about my mother-in-law,
Oh, God.
But again, it's all part of paying the dues.
It is.
I remember I got somebody saw me at an open mic. I did a library show, and he said, "I really like your comedy." He says, "I do these weekend shows at a certain Italian restaurant in Long Island. How would you like to be the comedian? We're going to have live music, then they're going to do a break, and then do more live music." I said, "Fantastic! My first live paid show." All right. All the $40. Well, I get there really early. I had my wife, my cousin, and I had a full table of people. Not because I had to bring them, but I thought this is really cool. It's like a dinner show. I felt validated. And so they had a 3-piece band. They played for 45 minutes. The guy who was emceeing the show opened up with like 3 minutes of comedy. Okay, now it's time for Bruce Lipsky to get out here. And now, which people haven't talked for 45 minutes, they've been eating and everything else like that. Now I come out there, everybody wanted to start talking. Hey, wait, I need another refill on coffee. And the busboys and the waiters are coming, the plates are clanging. My tiramisu, what happened to my tiramisu? And another thing about my mother-in-law,
Jeez.
And the room was overfilled. And because it was overfilled, they had a second room on the side. They had this it's like 4x4 cutout. So he says, every couple of minutes, I want you to look to that hole over there and talk to the people in there too.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Oh man, man, oh boy, that was a, you know, some people actually came up to me afterwards and said, I appreciate your comedy. But one of the things that was, I thought I was a storyteller, and in doing a scene like that, you can't be a storyteller. You need punch jokes because people's attention span were not there. But he knew my comedy, so it was one of those things where a trial by fire. And when I told other comedians that I'm doing this, they all started laughing and shaking their heads because they all had the same experience then. You know,
Oh my
my
gosh.
coffee, what about my tea? I ran out of milk, you know. My eggplant, you didn't give me my eggplant, you know.
You know what I've noticed is that in comedy, you're starting out and you don't know your voice, you don't know what things are going to work for you to say and not say, and you find it out, and all of a sudden you have people laughing through your entire set, and you're like, I didn't know I was this funny.
Exactly, yeah. Or memorable.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I remember doing this library show.
Mhm.
I would do it once a month. Mark Rye, a fabulous show, great guy. Sometimes they were live because at one of the libraries, now with COVID, you can't do them live. There's Zoom. But I remember I had a bit where I was one of the first people, at least in Long Island, to do a CVS bit. You have CVS out by you?
Yes.
You know, when you spend 99 cents on a pack of Tums, you get a receipt that's 17 feet long. All right. So I had a bit with that, and I actually brought the receipt out. And especially the senior crowds love that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember I hadn't used it in a while, and I did a library show, and it was in a different location because the library's under construction. And I got there, and I was the first one to go. I opened the show, and I've seen people in there, and I heard one of the people say, "Hey, here's that funny guy with the CVS receipt."
Wow.
And so, oh yeah, I heard him saying that. You know, I didn't do CVS that night
Oh
or that
my
day,
gosh.
but
That's cool.
but again, it was a validation. Maybe nobody else remembered who I was. It didn't matter. And you can, the thing was that they knew who I was. Or I've had other times the same thing. Oh, that guy's back again. You know, great. Sometimes, oh, that guy's back again. Him
No,
again. Him again. You know.
I was
So
doing comedy the other night for a private gig, and I overheard two people who I thought were not impressed with me when I came in the room and met them. And when I started doing comedy, they were talking to each other. I overheard them say, I like her. And I'm like, I'm not used to this. What is,
right.
I like,
Exactly. Again, everyone wants to be validated. I told Helene this story. I don't know if I told you this story. At Governor's, you know, Governor's Club in Long Island.
yes.
The top club in Long Island. You know, they own 3 different clubs. The Governor's, the guy James who owns the club or manages whatever it is, in the green room over there, because there's 2 rooms. There's the little room and there's the big stage. I never been on the big stage. I always got the little room. So as I told you, I used to get dressed up as a sport coat, shirt, tie, and everything else like that. And he was passing by one day, and he says, "I really like the way you look."
Nice.
And so I said to him, "Well, I'm trying to get on the big stage, And he didn't say anything after that. Again, validation. It didn't get me anywhere, but the fact that somebody did notice, and maybe in the back of his head, I like the way that guy looked. If I see him again, maybe I'll give him an opportunity.
Wonderful.
I didn't. Or you have some of the opposite stuff happening because they share sort of the common green room in some ways, as governors. Sometimes a headliner or somebody else who's playing in the big room wants to get extra stage time, so he'll leave there and go to the little room and ask if he can be put on or watch the other comics. So I remember one of the comedians came out there, and I never met him before, and he says, "The way you dressed, what's the story with the cane?" So I have the cane with me. You know, a lot of times what I would do is I wouldn't bring the cane on stage. All right. Because I don't want them staring at my cane. I want them to be with me,
Yes.
So, because I've ever used it as part of your act. And Steve Marshall told me about that months and months beforehand. And I'll tell you what he told me in a second. This guy says, why don't you think of something? Bring it on stage tonight. And out of the spur of the moment, not even thinking, I got on stage put the cane in the corner, just very meticulously, slowly, turned around to the audience and said, "Don't mind my cane. I'm just using it to like settle my lawsuit." And the crowd went crazy. They started cracking up. I said, "Holy shit. I never thought of this." Steve had a different take. Steve Marshall, he's very in your face, rambunctious and everything. He told me to get on stage with the cane and say, "See this cane? I'm sure some of you people have had injuries and things like that. I got hit by an effing car." I don't want to curse on here. You got hit by an effing car. Yeah. Be in the face on that one. Totally different thing. And then someone
Yes.
told me, and then I took a class with Jerry Corley talking about
Yes.
openings on stage and stuff like that. It's always good to have a hook when you get on stage. So I mentioned the fact that I sometimes get on stage and I use that. He said, "That's fantastic." Then I talked to another comedian and said, "Get rid of the cane. Don't even bring that up there." But who's right and who's wrong? The audience is right, I guess.
Yeah.
They're laughing. So I've tried both. And usually when I get on stage with the cane, because I do it so slowly and methodically, put it slightly, place it in the corner, turn around and say, you know, don't mind the cane. I'm just using it to like settle my lawsuit. And especially if there's a lawyer in the crowd, so I'm like, "Are you a lawyer?" Then like this little riffing there. So that
That's
helps open it up a little bit. But because
yeah.
time
Those
is, yeah, sorry.
those things you do to break the ice. I have to know that I have something at the very beginning, and then everything else comes easy. If I'm unsure about my opening,
Yeah, we all are that way. Yeah. If you're a slow starter, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I did a show, one of my first Zoom shows, and I got out there and sometimes I talk about getting old. I compare myself to an old clunker, an old automobile. I almost became that old. I couldn't get myself started. The first show, I couldn't get myself started. I don't know what it was. I came out there with the energy, and all of a sudden it was not that I blanked out. It took a little while for my engine to rev. In fact, even the guy who told me this said, by the time you got to your second or third joke, you were there. But until you got there, I was worried for you. He said, and that's I didn't prepare any differently for that night than any other night. Maybe the moon and the stars weren't lined up properly that night. I don't know, but it's just let's put it this way. Not every night is going to be a perfect night. I
exactly.
always said if you give 100%, that's the best you can think about. Because I think I maybe told you the last time how I sort of got into comedy. Besides the fact that I enjoyed comedy, a friend of mine used to run every year a benefit for an organization. Okay, and typically what she would do is she would hire a couple of comedians, maybe a singer. One of the first years I went there, they had a nationally known comedian on. Okay, and prior to him coming on, we had dinner, and with luck turn out, he actually sat next to me. So we started talking about comedy and things like that. He gave me his information, so on and so forth. He went out there, did really well. People loved him. And he stuck around afterwards, and people schmoozed, took pictures. He got paid a lot of money for that. A lot of money. Not 500, not 1,000, but a lot more. I know
Got
my
it.
money this. All right.
Yeah.
The next year, he was booked again. And guess what? They sat him next to me again. Not planned or anything. It just happened the way it was. Maybe it was planned. I don't know. But something looked different with him. As soon as I was talking to him, whatever. I just felt something wasn't right. He got up there, supposed to do 45 minutes. After 20 minutes, he left the stage.
Wow.
Came back, sat next to me, said, "Boy, this is a tough crowd." Crowd was the same as last year, for the most part. And I said to myself, he wasn't prepared. Whether he just wasn't prepared. And that pissed me off. It really did. He's my friend. Because I know what my friend paid him. And sort of I vowed that if I got on stage, I would give the best I could. Even if I felt crappy and whatever it was, I wasn't. I don't want to use the word not into it, but again, things just weren't gelling right. But make at least give the best I could.
Yes. I
And
had I had
yeah,
really good advice from a Philly comic who was my roommate for a while, Paul Lyons. He came and saw me at a graduation show of Vince Valentine's in um, New Jersey, and I was we were allowed to use boards that had all of our bits on it, and read it and perform and not have to memorize it, which was great for me at the time because I was having trouble memorizing my lines for a long time. And when I got done, Paul said, "Have you ever thought about being authentic?"
Uh,
And after I got done, which is kind of like saying you bombed.
right,
And
right, right.
I got a lot of laughs, and I skipped over some of my jokes, couldn't remember them, even though they were right there on the board to look at, the excitement and whatever. But I got to thinking about being authentic, and like when I really dug down deep to find out what is it I'm trying to do here and be connected to it every time I perform. And then he also said, if you're connected to what you're doing and connect with the people, that doesn't necessarily mean looking at them and, in the eyeball, but if they feel that connection, you'll never bomb.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel like in a way you can almost get away with a lot. I'm not saying everything. People will forgive you if they feel connected to you.
Right, right, right. Exactly, exactly.
If
Yeah,
you
yeah,
make a misstep and forget
yeah.
something, or,
Yeah. Well, the good news is that they don't know your punchlines.
yeah.
So if you screw up a punchline, they don't know that.
Sometimes I don't either.
Exactly, exactly. You don't either. And interesting was that when I first got sick with the COVID, and I was doing some of these Zoom shows, I felt I had a mental fog that my memory was lacking, and I couldn't remember some of the jokes. Or maybe I can remember the jokes, but I miss a line or two, and I said, "Man, I'm so mad at myself. I missed that line." But
Sass.
so and so would tell me, "You got to memorize, you got to practice." And I said, "I did practice," but some of the mental fog, and I don't want to use that as an excuse at that time. But yeah, stuff happens, stuff gets in your way. But the fact that you're not prepared is a difference for forgetting something. You know? And as I said, I was
Yes.
very angry over that. And again, I've been to some crazy shows. We've all been to crazy shows. Somebody asked me to do a senior center one time, and they said if you don't hook them on that first joke, you're in trouble. And they love hearing about Trump. I don't have any real Trump jokes. So I got out there. As soon as I got out there, they said, "Okay, I was a solo act. All right, okay." And just think about the senior centers. Uh, the main reason people go there is for the food and for free things. Okay, nice people, lovely people, all ages from 60 to 90s. Okay, but it's and all sorts of diseases and stuff, whatever. So as soon as I
Yeah.
stood up and they didn't mention my name, a woman stands up and says, "I don't like it. I don't like it." She starts screaming at the top of her lungs. I haven't said a word. Now my game got thrown off. So I started trying to tell some jokes. I don't like it. She wasn't telling me she didn't like me. And her caretaker said ignore her. But I couldn't ignore her. I actually broke protocol and walked over to the table and tried to engage her, which well, that basically I lost the audience there. Yeah, I tried doing my thing, and if I could. Oh, so you don't know. I got thrown off then. But I did a show at a VA hospital one time, and that was one of the best experiences I ever had. So I know you're a veteran, and and through the
Yes.
appreciation, and I was even told, wow, this was fantastic. Somehow I related well. I actually stayed afterwards, and hung out with these people, and just just I love talking and hearing stories and telling stories. My father was a vet as well. So it was a sort of a bond, a little bond. I think that's
Yes.
some of my strengths is that um, I think I'm stronger in the moment reacting my comedy as opposed to trying and memorize a bit, you know.
Wonderful.
So I think that's if I was to say what my comedy needs is yes, my material, but again, be more, as you say, real with the audience. Have more of a conversation as opposed to, being very strict and stringent and afraid you're going to blow a line. So you become rote almost. It almost become like a robot.
Yes.
Also, as you know, and everybody knows, economy of words. Uh, Sometimes, less is more.
Yes.
And I'll never forget a very famous comedian from Long Island was running these mic workshops out in Governors. So I was attending them. Very few people went to. Well, sometimes I almost felt like I was getting one-on-one attention. It was great.
Okay.
It was very inexpensive. And so she said, okay, go do your set. So I did my set. In the middle of doing, I have this bit about my wife buying a designer dog. And I have like 10 different parts to the joke. And she stopped me and said, Bruce, you're boring the shit out of me. And that was a telltale thing. She says, you're a good writer. I like what you're talking about, but you're boring the shit out of me because you get to the point. And so I was trying to have details and this and that, what color's the dog, what this and that, blah, 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 blah. No, tell me the setup and the punchline. All that other stuff. Repeat it again. You're boring the shit out of me.
Even if I didn't know who that was, I would know who that is just from the phrase.
Say no more.
You say that everybody loves a Trump joke. The other night at that private thing, I have this thing that I say, I saw the Empire State Building. I was so glad, mostly because Trump didn't build it. And the crowd turned on me. They started booing. It was like in the middle of my set, and I'm like, oh my God. So I didn't have I never had to plan for if that happened, because it never happened. So I just said, well, that's about my time. And I pretended like I was leaving. And then I came back and I said, that was just my feel you out joke. Anyway, how's it feel to be felt out by a geriatric? And then I got him back.
Exactly.
And I didn't even plan on that. It just happened in the moment.
Yeah, because I had one Trump thing when I talked about the dog. I said my wife bought this $3,000 designer dog, and I'm angry over that. She says, well, he has his papers. Great, so Trump can't throw him out of the country? That was my joke, That was my one Trump joke. But I usually don't like to throw that in there. But I was using that in the beginning. I haven't used that. This is the first time I think I've told that in, I don't know, a year maybe,
I like that.
Yeah. So
I'm feeling something border collie.
Exactly. The invisible fence we put up.
That's a great idea for the real fence. Have an invisible one.
They actually have those dogs. Yeah.
Really?
Called the invisible fence. You put electric shock collar on the dog, and there's sensors put around your property. So if the dog gets close to the sensors, it zaps them. A lot of dogs figure it out. If they run fast through the fence, they just get a minor pinch. So,
oh my gosh.
Called the invisible fence. Yeah.
So is there anything that you'd like to touch on about your comedy, your life, that I haven't given you time to talk about?
I think we covered a lot. As I said, this is not just for me, advice for whether it's real comics out there. They always say work at it, write. Edit. Don't throw anything out because some idea may hit you. Tape your sets, things you've always heard. What I do, I carry my iPhone. Everybody always gets ideas. Sometimes I find the best time for me to get ideas is when I'm walking on a treadmill. I don't know, my mind is free and open. I don't know. See, I just can't sit down at a computer and start writing. That's not me. But I have all these crazy ideas, like everybody else probably does in comedy. I think I get frustrated because everybody wants the perfect joke, if there's such a thing, and it never seems to be that way. But just keep working at it. I've definitely, Zoom has helped me a lot because I'm on stage a lot more now, or doing open mics. In fact, my wife said to me a couple of weeks ago, she said, we have something called the Cozy Calendar in my phone. It's like an app that you use, and you can put all the things you do, whether we have a doctor's appointment, the dog needs grooming, or whatever it is. And she said, Bruce, over the last week and a half, you had 22 things on here, on mics and shows and this and that. I said, a lot of them were late at night when she's sleeping and very early in the morning. I try to balance as much family life as possible, even though COVID has kind of screwed up family life. Anyway, where are we going? Where are we going? So, but I still try, whatever it is, to have that balance. Comedy is very important, but so are a lot of other things. Comedy is not, maybe I shouldn't be saying this out here. Comedy is not 24/7 your life, at least my life. but there was comedy 24/7 in my life, you know, but it's not like I feel the pressure every second of the day to be funny. So what I perceive,
Yes.
yeah, so, and
I went way overboard doing far too many interviews every day, 7 days a week.
right,
And then now I'm just back, want to do quality,
yeah,
one,
yeah,
maybe two a
right,
day.
right,
If
right,
I
right,
have to, 3 or 4, but
right.
never 5 or 10.
Found myself being all over the place too. I'm going to try this one with this mic. I'm going to try that and this mic, but never seem to be honing in on really what's important and getting 5 minutes set, the 7 minutes set down. You know, so yeah, that's one advice I'd say. Don't scatter yourself too much. You know, focus. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you've helped me a lot with my comedy. You go on Rob Shaffe's classes and help other people. I know Steve Marshall gave you some tips and you took other courses. I know that you're out helping other people with their comedy. Do you want to speak about how much it helps you when you help others?
Oh, absolutely. Just think about because like I took a class the other day. Joe DeVito had a class, a 3-hour class. It was fabulous. You know, I never met him before, and we were going over some things about people's whatever sets they want to work on and jokes, and a different set of ears hears things. And even if you say one thing, I came out and said something to a woman, and it seemed obvious to me, but it wasn't obvious to her. I love this. This is fantastic. And he even validated it. This is great. What a great line. And it just blurted out. It was not, I didn't think about it. And there's other ways it comes that way too. So yes, I do enjoy that aspect because I also enjoy people helping me coming out with something.
Yes.
It's always a two-way street. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been great. Yeah. So
Thank you so much for all your time today, the interview.
thank
You
you.
threw in
Thank you.
some jokes. I want to give you the opportunity to say some jokes at the end here if you want to, if you felt
No,
like
not necessarily. Not
yeah,
necessarily. No, I don't think people necessarily came to hear me
do your
perform.
shtick.
Exactly. If you want to hear me do my shtick, I can be reached at
Hit
yeah,
him up on Facebook, you guys. He's
right,
super
right.
funny.
Friend
You
me on Messenger. Yes, Bruce Lipsky, Lipsky. Any doubts? Speak to Linda. She'll send it over. Okay.
Yes, book him. He's a great guy. He's
Thank you.
available for comedy around the world.
Exactly.
So he's getting
Exactly.
booked. He's not
Right.
just one of these people that never gets booked. He's getting booked. So get him while you can afford him is my
Right.
my my
Right.
thing.
Throw the book at me. Right.
You're on a private thing tonight,
Yeah.
so that I wish
Okay.
you luck and break
Thank
legs.
you. Thank you. Love you and love
Love you.
everybody out there. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and we'll catch you soon.
Thank you, Bruce Lipsky. Bye.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, Linda. Take care.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.